Hey pals, pull up a stool, loosen whatever passes for your leggings, and pour yourself something fermented but not too suspiciously green. Because tonight, we are re-diving hip first into one of the strangest collective meltdowns the Middle Ages ever two-stepped through. The dancing frenzies of Aachen 1374 and Strasbourg 1518. Real medieval humans once jitter-bugged themselves to the brink of exhaustion. Injury and in too many cases death. All while the town doctors earnestly insisted they just needed more music and maybe a quick bloodletting or 10. Think of it as history's most dangerous rave. Starring villagers who never heard the phrase hydration station. And featuring a soundtrack provided by slightly bemused town pipers, who got hired to keep the party going because, if the patients stopped, legend said, they'd keel over harder than a knight who forgot where the visor latch was during allergy season. Our mission: unpack exactly how hundreds of perfectly ordinary folks woke up one Tuesday, looked at the cobblestones, and thought, you know what? I'll Charleston until my feet look like overcooked stew meat. We'll tour the cul-de-sacs of medieval medicine, nibble suspicious rye bread, and side-eye the local clergy who tried everything from holy relic processions to gently suggesting the dancers maybe knock it off already because the organist was on overtime. So kick off your shoes, but maybe keep socks on, this story gets blistergraphic, and let's shuffle back to the summer of 1374, where the Rhine River Valley is about to drop a beat no one asked for. 1. A quick warm-up stretch first. The term dancing plague is our modern clickbait label. Contemporary chroniclers scribbled phrases like Curia Magna, St. John's Dance, or apocalyptic conga lino. I made that last one up, but given the vibe, it's not far off. Medieval Europe loved to file anything weird under a saint's portfolio. Fires got St. Anthony, toothaches got St. Apollonia, and uncontrollable dancing, that got handed to St. Vitus, possibly because he was martyred in a cauldron of boiling oil. And honestly, once you've got that on your CV, you can represent any ailment involving involuntary twitching. Add in a general cultural brew of famine, plague aftershocks, millenarian panic, and the universal medieval pastime of if in doubt. Blame the devil, and spontaneous mass choreography almost starts to make sense. Emphasis on the almost. But I'm front-loading metaphors. Let's roll the reel. 2. Aachen 1374. When the Rhine disco invaded your hams. 2.1 The setup it. June 1374. Europe is still getting ghosted by the Black Death's earlier tour dates. Crops are meh, and rumor says the Four Horsemen have RSVP'd, maybe to the next harvest festival. Okuna, venerable spa town famous for Charlemagne. Old throne and hot springs that smell faintly of rotten, awakens to an ominous bass line no one else can hear. One chronicle reports that out of nowhere men and women in countless numbers spilled into streets and began to dance with neither rest nor sense. Picture market day. You rebartering for eels when Aunt Gertrude breaks into what looks like a full body floss. No medieval TikTok filter, just raw panic. Within hours, clusters of dancers clog every lane, arms flailing, skirts twirling, sweat flying like budget pyrotechnics. 2 point to the symptoms playlist eyewitnesses ticked off the greatest hits, have band-grown combos, legs, torsos lurching, occasionally a mid-air split, nobody's hamstrings survive. Visions and shrieking. Some claimed to see demons yanking invisible marionette strings. Others swore heavenly choirs told them to keep grooving. No off switch. Dancers collapsed only when utterly spent, sometimes dead, sometimes merely unconscious long enough to worry the neighbors. Modern auducts would diagnose dehydration, torn ligaments, crush wounds, maybe medieval healers, meanwhile, chalked it up to overheated blood. Their remedy? Vent the heat. Which leads us to 2.3 doctors prescribe more cowbell. Local physicians consulted Galen Hippocrates and sheer vibes, then decided the cure was to play music to match the dancer's tempo, steering them to a controlled endpoint like cattle into a chute. It's the medical equivalent of noticing your friend fell into quicksand and shouting, "Buddy, swim harder." Town councils hired minstrels, set up makeshifting, and hoped exhaustion would equal recovery before funeral bills stacked higher than cathedral steeples. 2.4 Fallout and Migration. Aachen's outbreak didn't stay put. Contemporary chronicles map a jittery Congolene downstream along the Rink. Metz and dozens of villages reported echo events through that summer, like a medieval flash mob on a slow-moving tour bus. The choreography drifted 500 kilometers in weeks, escorted by gawking spectators and opportunistic vendors selling Saint Vita socks. By autumn, the epidemic fizzled. Maybe colder nights cooled that famously overheated blood. Maybe harvest duties yanked peasants back to reality. Or maybe everyone simultaneously realized they couldn't actually moonwalk in clogs. Records simply taper off, leaving historians with a shrug and an after-party of theories. We'll roast later. 3. Fast forward to Strasbourg, 1518. When Alsace said, "Hold my barand, play my lute." Accidental DJ jump 144 years. Sits under a July sun so brutal you could fry a pretzel on a pewter tankard. Enter Frau Truffi. Chroniclers offer zero backstory housewife. Kobler's daughter, avant-garde, cardio instructor. But on the 14th of July, she steps into the street and begins to dance. Alone. No music. No festival. Just pure, inexplicable boogie. Neighbors laugh, then squint, then panic as minutes stretch into hours. By dawn, she's still at it, shoeless, possibly mumbling. Definitely not okay. Within a week, she has 30 partners. By late July, 400. If you've ever tried to book a table at a microbrewery on a Saturday, you understand the sidewalk logistics nightmare. 3.2 Municipal mayhem. Town council tries event planning medieval. City councils excelled at two things: levying taxes and writing stern proclamations. Faced with a flesh and bone rave, Strasbourg's magistrates brainstormed band dancing. Already tried arrests, just made the detainees jitter in jail. Prayer marathon? Dung choirs exhausted. Zero effect. Finally, echoing Aachen's precedent, they commissioned a massive wooden stage near the horse market, hired the best pipers, drummers, and becussed 1518 bagpipers in the region, and told the musicians not to stop until the dancers dropped. They even imported professional dancers to lead the afflicted, hoping to choreograph chaos into a manageable routine. Picture it, an officially sanctioned silent disco where only half the crowd wants to be there. The other half is medically unwell, and everyone smells like fear, goat tallow, and whatever passed for deodorant before alum blocks. 3.3 Casualties and clergy clapback by Madogus. Reports tally deaths in the dozens. Heart attacks, strokes, plain old fatigue pick, your grim ending. Witness accounts mention bloodied feet, broken ribs, and one poor soul who allegedly danced until he literally voided his mortal soul on the spot. Clergy interpreted the ordeal as divine anger, possibly tied to local sins like gambling, gossip, or forgetting to tithe after hitting the wine harvest jackpot. They hauled out St. Vitus relics to a nearby shrine in Saverne, and marched surviving dancers there, barefoot as penance come therapy. Whether that worked or the epidemic burned itself out naturally is unclear. But by early September, the last jig was up. 4. Detour. 5 medieval diagnostic theories, rated like bad Yelp reviews. Overheated, blood, pitch dancing, vents internal heat. Let the patient writhe until equilibrium returns. Result: blisters, fainting, Undertaker gig economy spike. Stars. 2/5. Demonic possession pitch. Infernal entities forcing bodies to groove. Solution. Exorcism. Holy water. Maybe a stern lecture. Result. Occasional accidental drowning via overenthusiastic sprinkling. Stars 1/5. Divine punishment. Pitch. God's subtle hint that society is offbeat. Organize pilgrimages. Light candles. Cancel Friday night dice games. Result. Candle makers profit. Dancers keep dying. Stars 2/5. Musical enchantment pitch. Certain tunes trigger irresistible boogie. Counterspell with equal and opposite melody or louder drums. Result. Grows local folk song repertoire. Still no cure. Stars 3/5. Poisoned bread. Pitch. Moldy rye hosts LSD's alkaloids, causing convulsions and hallucinations. Result. Explains twitching. Doesn't explain why only dance moves, not mass karaoke. Stars 4/5. 5. What kept the crowd moving? Modern hypotheses with extra snark mass psychogenic illness, basically. Collective stress plus suggestible minds equals group hallucination you can dance to. Imagine burnout so bad that your subconscious hijacks your calves. In 1518, Strasbourg folks faced famine, smallpox, economic uncertainty, cortisol smoothie. One person twitches, others empathize. Brains glitch in sympathy. Boom. Medieval flash mob meltdown. Ergotism light version that rye fungus crafts ergot alkaloids similar to LSD. In low chronic doses, it produces cramps, tingling, and theorists argue maybe rhythmic seizures that onlookers interpreted as dance. Counterpoint. Ergotism also causes gangrenous limbs falling off like burnt french fries, which chroniclers never mention mid-hodan. So, heatstroke plus dehydration July. On stone streets greater than 35 degrees Celsius. Heavy wool clothing, zero sunscreen. First victim staggers from sun. Watchers think demon, panic spreads. Social domino effect. Add medieval FOMO and half the town leaps in. Religious, ecstasy, mystical revival, the late Middle Ages, loved a good ecstatic cult. Singing flagellation processions. Relic tours, dancing fits might be the kinetic branch of that impulse. Morale spirals, spirituality spikes. Someone frames the jittering as holy. Congratulations, you're in a charismatic revival with impromptu breakdance, liturgy. Secret guild of early Zumba instructors, unlikely, but historians can dream. Say ACHAR, ACTAR, ENTAR, LU, Mini biographies, nitrogen monoxide. One asked for 6.1 Johann, the reluctant flautist Muller Guild musician. Age approximately 28. Hired by Aachen Council June 1374. Thought the gig would be a quick market day jingle. Ended up playing 12-hour shifts while step-tracking the deadliest cardio class in Christendom. Post-epidemic, reported sudden aversion to triple-meter tunes, and retired to raise turnips far from 6.2 Frau. Katharina. Iron ankles. Cimmern unverified. Strasbourg. Participant who allegedly lasted 3 straight days before collapsing near the fishmongers. Survived. Later sued the city for shoe reimbursement. Folk ballads exaggerate her feat to 7 days because humans can't resist rounding up for drama. 6.3 Father Anselm of Severn, local priest, roped into escorting dancers to St. Vita's shrine. Wrote letter complaining that even the piety of relics is hard to sustain when someone vomits on your scapular every 100 paces. Canonized never me feed forever. 7. Pause for water. This script is only getting started, friend. We've strutted through maybe 5% of the saga. Upcoming installments will tackle the economics of emergency tambourine procurement, how medieval shoe technology failed tragically fast under 24/7 polka conditions, comparative analysis, other lesser-known dancing manias, from Italy to the Orkneys, a survivor's post-plague rehab plan, why Spotify should add a 14th century plague core playlist and what it might sound like 8. The Rhine Rhapsody expands. Conga by Canal Tours, 1374 to 1375. Grab your imaginary parchment map and sprinkle a few barley grains on it. Those are the towns. Starting in Aachen, our involuntary rave migrated southwest like a drunk goose with a broken compass. Chroniclers describe dancers sweeping along the Rhine like summer hail, which sounds poetic until you remember hail ruins crops. And medieval crops were already one bad rain cloud from a famine. 8 stops the sources mention most often. Aachen, Cologne. Bonn-Koblenz, Mainz, where future printers would invent movable type, sadly not movable feet, off cobblestones, which everyone needed. Wormspeyer, Strasbourg, prequel cameo, the pattern. Riverbank trade hubs, busy ferry crossings, and towns where word-of-mouth gossip could outrun any quarantine. As you load us at us, immediately followed by 3 farmhands deciding they felt twitchy too, just in case that was the fashionable illness this season. 9. Medieval streetwear hazards. Why shoes lost the will to live? Let's talk footwear. Archaeologists dredging Rhine mudflats have recovered 14th century shoe fragments. So floppy they make modern marathoners weep with empathy. The turn shoe. One soft leather piece, stitched inside out, soaked, flipped right side, then dried into shape. Great for tiptoe pilgrimages. Lousy for 48-hour punk rock jigs on granite paving. Breakdown of a typical dancer's gear failure timeline. Hour 2. Seams stretch. Heel cup flattens. Socks soak in a sloshy broth of sweat and pre-antibiotic bacteria. Hour 6. Toe box. With splinters, chicken feathers, and misamed chamber pot contents infiltrate. Hour 12. Sole detaches like a disappointed parent. Dancer now barefoot on sun-baked stone, blood decorating cobbles and accidental paste. Hour 18 plus. Parish medic wraps feet in linen strips, soaked with vinegar, and hopes Jesus patents Band-Aids soon. Moral Adidas should issue a retro plague runner 1374 for historians. Limited edition. Smells of rye and poor life choices. 10. The town treasury panic. Funding a 24/7 marathon, you never ask for picture city councilors, hunched over an abacus, realizing the budget line for unexpected folk medical rave is 0. Expenses snowballed fast. Musician wages. Hazard pay doubled after first fatality on platform carpentry. Timber imports from Black Forest, because local supplies went into siege wall repairs last decade. Water barrels. Dancers guzzled like knights after a salt-cured jerky binge. Extra gravediggers. Overtime ain't cheap. Pardoners and relic rentals. Spiritual capitalism never misses a crisis. Some councils levied emergency ale taxes. Legend claims Cologne minted a one-off coin depicting a stick figure dancer. More plausible. Authorities slashed street lamp oil budgets, plunging alleys into gloom, so fewer spectators gathered after sunset. Medieval version of closing the park at dusk. Success rate 0%. People just brought torches, because when life gives you mania, you invent mood lighting. 11 side quests. Lesser known jitter-bugged episodes. The 74 and 18 blowouts. Hog headlines. But Europe hosted plenty of smaller flash drives that left tantalizing ink blots in monastic ledgers. A sampler platter. Apulia, Italy. Coastal fishermen abruptly shuffling beside their boats. Some stung by local tarantulas, birthing the tarantella dance craze. Midsummer, Bavarian village. C. 1237. Children's Crusade meets flash. Dozens of kids hop uncontrollably toward airport before collapsing. Chroniclers blame Curse of Herodias, which sounds like either a demoness or a metal band. Aberdeen, Scotland. Brief note of women leaping with fierce mirth after a poor barley harvest. Local kirk elders banned bagpipes for a fortnight. That'll teach joy a lesson. Each case shares 3 ingredients: collective stress, strong supernatural worldview, and bystanders who escalate instead of hit pause. Anyone sensing a pattern? Humans top-tier social creatures, yet absolute chaos monkeys. When a neighbor's nervous system reboots in public.
12. Medicine meets music. The pipe, the lute, and the misplaced maraca, why physicians doubled down on live soundtrack therapy deserves. A closer roast. Galenic doctrine recap. Health equals 4 humors balanced. Overflow of blood equals heat, red complexion, restless motion. Logical medieval leap. They're moving too much because they have too much energy. Let them burn it off to equilibrium. Music's role. Ancient Greek thinkers praised harmonic ratios as cosmic medicine. Medieval scholars inherited that vibe. So if movement is disharmonic, counter with rhythm. Physicians essentially wrote a prescription. RX 120 BPM, Dorian mode, repeat, ad nauseum. Did anyone test a control group with silence? Nope. Welcome to pre-Renaissance clinical trials, where the placebo is probably witchcraft and peer review means check my pulse to see if I am still alive. First-person mini-scene. A day in the life of a Strasbourg drummer, August 1518. Name's Mathjas. Guild percussionist. Yesterday, I was tapping jigs for weddings. Today, the city council drags me to the horse market square. There's a stage, 100 twitching souls, and a clerk shouting, "Play, or God help you." Noon sun cooks the square like pottage. Feet bleed. I smell iron and yeast. Some lady collapses. 2 more step over her like it's choreography. A friar sprinkles holy water sizzle noise on hot flagstones, then politely suggests I speed up. Why? Because slower beats make dancers jerkier, makes the crowd anxious, and anxious equals heresy, apparently. Around dusk, my forearms shake worse than the patient's. Magistrate tosses me a coin pouch and says, "Back tomorrow." I ask if we're curing them. He says we're managing them. Same thing, right? I come home, dream of drums thundering inside my skull, wake to cramps in both calves. For a terrifying minute, I can't keep still. I think, St. Vitus, no. Luckily, it's just nerves, or so I pray. And thus medical containment crosses into occupational hazard. 14. The after-party. Long-term impact on law, lore, and pop culture. Guild ordinances, Strasbourg city statutes quietly added clauses forbidding impromptu street dancing without permit. Religious calendars, Feast of St. Vitus gained ex voto. Pilgrimages from survivors who believed the saint both caused and cured the affliction saints love brand complexity. Folklore transmutations, German fairy tales about cursed red shoes or midnight dances, trace motifs back here. Conversational telephone over centuries turns deadly choreography into moral parables about pride, vanity, or skipping church. Music history footnote. Some musicologists credit these epidemics with accelerating local popularity of faster triple meter dances, the forerunner of the waltz, because towns kept bands on retainer and the tunes stuck. Congratulations, plague victims. You may be invented ballroom date night. Modern parallels, flash mobs, raves, and TikTok challenges. Hold up your smartphone. Today's social media dance crazes travel at fiber optic speed, not river barge pace, but psychological fuel is familiar. Collective stress release, fear of missing out, algorithmic reinforcement. Replace ergot bread with doom scroll anxiety, and it's shockingly plausible. Now imagine if your Wednesday Addams TikTok challenge had no off button and liability insurance was a rosary. That was 1518. Good luck monetizing that on AdSense. 17. In case of uncontrollable boogie, the Field Medic's Pocket Handbook. Compiled from 14th and 16th century recipe scrolls, margin doodles, and one alarmingly candid confession by a barber surgeon named Otto, who never trusted music again. Step 1. Establish whether the patient is actually dancing or just having a seizure. If they can answer what beat am I on, while gyrating, it's the plague. If they foam, flop, or ignore a hurdy-gurdy solo, go straight to St. Apollonia's ward for general fits. Step 2. Protect the feet. Wrap in linen steeped in cooled wine cheap claret works. Save the Riesling for morale. Tie fresh mint sprigs between toes. Claims of cooling vapors, mostly mask odor. Step 3. Bleed, then feed. Open a vein in the arm while reciting the Athanasian Creed backwards. Replace lost fluids with barley broth, honey water, or controversially more wine, so the patient forgets he is tired. Step 4. Musical management. Assign 2 pipers per dozen dancers. Rotate musicians every 3 hours to prevent sympathy. Witches ban bagpipes after dusk city noise ordinances. Plus they make horses panic. Step 5. Spiritual containment. Pin a St. Vitus badge to the dancer's cap. Cap already lost, sew it to the hem of someone standing nearby. The saint will sort it out. Process to nearest shrine once feet are too shredded for backsliding double as pilgrimage and crowd control.
Step 6.
Documentation. Note name, trade, shoe size, and last meal. Future scholars will debate whether eel pie predisposes one to boogie fever. 6-step plan destined to fail gracefully, while generating colorful parchment anecdotes for us to quote 7 centuries later. 18. Blister economics. How cordwainers profited from pain. Medieval cobblers rarely filed quarterly reports, but scattered ledger fragments reveal a curious spike around outbreak years. Orders for double-lasted clogs, quick-stitch turn shoes, and something ominously labeled soul replacements for the afflicted. A not-so-imaginary interview with Master Hans Teufel Strasbourg cordwainer, August 1518. Business. Like a drum with no mercy. Every morning, another parish steward shoves coins at me, screaming for miracle footwear. I tried reinforcing uppers with boiled leather, and goat sinews still shred in half a day. Began nailing thin iron plates beneath the ball of the foot. Dancers click like hail on a chapel roof, but at least the toes stay attached. By autumn, iron prices rose. Blacksmiths pivoted from horseshoes to people shoes. Local jesters quipped the city sounded like a battlefield made of castanets. Meanwhile, tanners introduced the Vitus hide, cow leather soaked in alum and saltpeter, advertised to withstand even the devil's foxtrot. Independent testing. Inconclusive, but the marketing jingle slapped. Adon services emerged. Foot salve stands beside water barrels. Instant pilgrimage sandals pre-blessed, disposable, guaranteed to last at least 2 Servern. Licto, Tokensteiny tin feet sold as protective charms, ironically shaped like blisters. Result. While mortality rose, so did artisan revenue, proving once again that capitalism can tap dance on tragedy's grave and still demand a tip. 19. Playlist autopsy. What did medieval DJ sets sound like? Forget house, techno, or lo-fi beats. You're working with lutes, shawms, nakers, and the occasional psaltery. The goal, keep bodies moving, but not invoke demons that bishops can't out-exorcise before Vespers.
Probable.
Saltarello mode. Brisk triple time, imported from Italian courts, think 120130 BPM. Estampi, Reel of the Rhine, repetitive drone, ideal for trance states.
Nice.
Pipers can loop the aphrase until their fingers seize.
Sideways hops.
Boys.
Sideways hops popular among peasants who considered it legally distinct from dancing during Lent.
Processional hymn with added drum pulse. Clergy compromise. Sanctified lyrics over a backbeat stolen from tavern halls. Musicologists argue that pairing sacred chant modes with percussion created cognitive dissonance holy melody. Sinful groove priming guilt-ridden dancers to swing between ecstasy and terror. Congratulations, you've invented medieval dubstep. Did any of this help? Chroniclers note brief synchrony. When musicians landed the perfect tempo, some dancers moved smoother, screams dropped a notch, and collapse rates slowed. Whether that's therapeutic entrainment or simple ergonomics, Spotify's still figuring out. But if you stumble across a playlist titled St. Vitus Bangers 1374, Extended Tavern Remix, proceed with caution. 20. Who was allowed to dance themselves senseless? Class and gender micropolitics authorities reacted differently depending on whose knees were knocking. Peasant women, tolerated longer, blamed on weak female bodies and hysterical vapors. Treatment, prayer, music, a brisk slap of cold water. Guild apprentices. Potential workforce loss council rushed remedies, sometimes forced dancers back to workshops strapped to benches until tremors eased. Clergy or wealthy merchants. Crisis level. If mayor's brother broke into a tarantella, councils expedited holy processions, hired star physicians from Basel, and quadrupled. Candle budgets. Reputation management. 16th century edition. Children. Pity plus panic. At Aachen, dancers under 12 were herded into the cathedral and laid on the relics of St. Cornelius. Half stopped twitching, half fell asleep, one peed. This hierarchy shaped chronicler bias. Many notes fixate on women in red dresses spinning wildly, ignoring male victims unless they held office or purse strings. Modern epidemiologists wade through that skew, trying to tally casualties that never made parchment because a plowman's collapse didn't merit ink. 21. Courtroom drama. Ergot vs. Mass psychogenic illness. Scene an imaginary tribunal. Vaulted hall. Torchlight flicker. Presiding judge. Dame historiography Vaughn. Footnote. 2 advocates approach the bench. Advocate A represents. Ergot sports a Stockin sclerotia lapel pin. Advocate B argues for MPI carries a clipboard labeled stress plus suggestibility. Opening statements. Ergot Council. Ladies, lords, and literati. My client is claviceps purpurea, humble yet potent. Ingested via rye, it yields convulsions, hallucinations, vasoconstriction textbook dance fuel. Grain shortage summers, bingo, juries love biochemical villains. MPI Council. Objection: ergot causes gangrene, not choreographed hopping. Exhibit. Survivors with intact toes. My case rests on mass trauma, famine, plague memories, doomsday preaching. One twitchy woman and bam mirror neurons light up like Yule fires. No mold required. Witness 1. A loaf of 1518 rye bread testifies dryly it was baked same morning. Eaten by 9 dancers, but also by dozens of non-dancers. Ergo, correlation does not equal cause. Witness 2. City sermon transcript details weekly homilies predicting apocalypse if citizens don't repent. Audience anxiety rating 11/10. Cross-examinations devolve into jargon until judge footnote bangs gavel. Both hypotheses retain plausible crumbs. Verdict. Inconclusive. This court recommends further study and a stiff drink. Case dismissed. Conclusion. Modern scholars hedge. Maybe a synergy trace, ergot primed nervous systems. Psychosocial stress lit the fuse. History rarely gifts us neat single bullet answers, just messy confetti of partial truths. 22 microbiome break. One paragraph of pure, unfiltered rye nerdiness, ergot psychoactive culprits, deolysorgic acetamides, bind serotonin receptors 5-HT2A, sparking sensory distortion. But vasoconstriction compromises blood flow to extremities first, precipitating holy fire necrosis long before dance marathons. Ergo, Strasbourg's clean-legged casualties muddy the ergot pot. Yet grain supply ledgers confirm 1517 to 18 harvests were damp and mold-friendly. Basically, the prosecution's exhibit is smudged. Historians continue arguing on conference panels fueled by motel coffee and PowerPoint animations of purple fungus. 23. Interlude. Letter from a frenzied shoemaker to his sister, August 1374. Dearest Marguerite, I write while my hands still obey. The square outside pounds like war drums. Villagers whirl until shirts tear and feet paint the stones ruddy. I tried nailing bankers' leather to their soles. One woman thanked me, then pirouetted straight into a fruit cart and emerged sticky with cherries, yet still dancing. Priests chant, minstrels wheeze, the mayor weeps heeled taxayer next to pay musicians. If our little Hans feels a tremor in his toes, sit him in cold water and read psalms until dawn. Trust not the fiddlers. They lure as surely as sirens. Pray for us. My all blisters faster than their heels. Your devoted brother. Peter 3 weeks later. Peter's ledger resumes normal orders. Life snaps back. Grief swept under the rushes. Another weird chapter nudged into folklore. 24. Pan-European ripple effects. How neighboring cities prepared. The 1374 episode scared civic leaders continent-wide. Minutes from a Bruges council meeting list bizarre contingency rules. Ban large drum ensembles during heat waves. Inspect rye mills for black kernels that laugh at night. Authorize nuns to slap first-time twitchers with wet willow branches symbolic cooling measure. In Milan, authorities experimented with silent zones. They posted criers to shush street musicians in peak summer, believing sound might trigger dormant chorea seeds. Merchants protested sales drop without buskers. Law repealed within a month. London, too busy with its own crises to legislate dancing. But chronicler Henry Knighton still found ink to snark. Let the Flemings spin to death. Englishmen prefer sober ale and sturdy benches. Spoiler. 30 years later, East Anglia recorded a mini jig outbreak anyway. Hubris is a universal currency. 25. The long come down. Psychological aftershocks and survivor guilt modern PTSD frameworks retrofit. Neatly onto accounts of extansers who months later reported nightmares of invisible fiddles.
Which reflexes when hearing church bells?
Crippling guilt believed their fits were sinful spectacles that lured neighbors to ruin. Local confessors prescribed pilgrimages, fasting, or spinning wool in silence. Some survivors channeled trauma into lay religious movements flagellants, 2.0 minus the whips, plus austere chants. Irony, substituting one rhythmic group activity for another. Humans love patterns, even painful ones. 26. Foreshadowing the Renaissance body fad. From dangerous jig to court ballet. Fast forward a century, Italian courts cultivate balletto codified, graceful, absolutely non-fatal. Scholars see a through line. Civic authorities harnessed raw public movement energy, fined it into decorous court entertainment, placed street frenzy with palace choreography and social control wrapped in art. Hence, the dancing plague's macabre legacy. It scared elites into inventing safe, spectator-friendly dance forms, proto-HR policies for feet. Every at the Royale owes a little bow to Frau Troffia's blistered toes. 28. The Great Medieval Bake-Off. Clean rye, vs. Party mold. Imagine a timber-framed kitchen that smells like damp straw and ambition. Cauldron simmers, geese complain by the doorway, and we're about to stage the least appetizing cook-along in podcast history. Contestant 1. Honest loaf ingredients: rye flour, well water, pinch of salt, tablespoon of caraway, 0 visible fungi. Need: prove beside the hearth, bake till crusty, cool on a window ledge where a cat will inevitably sniff it. But that's authentic protein. Contestant 2. Bedeviled loaf, same recipe, but the flour comes from sacks stored a tad too long in a Rhineside mill. Within that meal lurk purple-black sclerotia of Claviceps purpurea got by any other name, and the spores are ready for prime time. Need, prove, bake. The oven kills spores, but not the alkaloids. Slice reveals charcoal fleck freckles like poppy seeds with an inferiority complex. Now gather a fictional tasting panel. Brother Eberhard, the apothecary, armed with a mortar and a skeptical eyebrow. Frau Lisbeth, the baker's wife, whose palate is as unforgiving as her wooden spoon. Gerhard, the parish constable, official taster because life insurance isn't invented yet. First bite of honest loaf. Nutty, earthy, pairs well with goat cheese. Everyone nods, boredom level. Barn-raising sermon. Second bite of bedeviled, faint bitterness, metallic aftersing, tongue feels tingly like it licked a 9-volt salter. Brother Eberhard raises a finger, scribbles notes about subtle fireworks behind forehead. Gerhard insists he's fine, then spends the next paragraph staring at the hearthstones because they start breathing. 2 hours later, Lisbeth merely feels bloated. She spat out most of her slice because it tasted like cupboard sins. Brother Eberhard experiences kaleidoscope halos around every candle and demands parchment to sketch the geometry of angels. Gerhard, he's outside reinventing Morris Dancing with the Goose. Conclusion: ergot bread can spark neurofireworks, but susceptibility varies. Dose, body weight, breakfast ale, Continental wild cards. Perfect fodder for a jitter epidemic if half the town draws the short loaf. 29. What if Strasbourg had electrolyte powder and foam sneakers? Cue the alternate history simulator. Picture a wagon rolling into 1518. Alsace loaded with neon-colored drink mix labeled Vitalit. Contains salts, citric temps, 0 plague. Demons. Breathable knit footwear with arch support, reflective piping, gobsmacking price tag. A scroll titled Interval Training for Mental Health. Magistrates rip open crates, shrugged, and hand supplies to the first cohort of flailing townsfolk. Immediate effects: dancers gulp Vitalit. Blood sodium levels stabilize. Some collapse sooner, body finally allowed to faint, others perk up and ask. For a latrine, foam sneakers reduce blister rates so dancers last longer. Council facepalms because they just extended the show's runtime. Interval training scroll proposes rest periods. It's but crowd inertia means no one hears the whistle. Physicians conclude that electrolytes cure nothing, only add fluorescent vomit. 2 streets. Long-term ripple. Merchants patent St. Vita sport footgear. Pilgrims queue to buy. Chroniclers still write about the plague, but add side notes on trendy ankle cushioning. Historians 3 centuries later argue whether the epidemic was psychosomatic, ergot-driven, or sponsored by Big Sneaker. Moral: you can upgrade tech, but without understanding root causes, you're spritzing rosewater on a barn fire 30. 10 pickup lines medieval bachelors probably tried on exhausted dancers? Warning. Results range from confused giggle to bludgeoning with a cymbal, fair maiden. May I share thy rhythm, and perhaps a flagon of rehydration? Is thy blood overheated, or dost thou always glow like molten iron? Permit me to loosen those shoot eyes. I'm handy with knots and penitential prayers. My horoscope said I'd meet a woman who can't stop moving. Destiny delivered. Saint Vitus wills it. Shall we waltz all the way to the parish altar? Thou art the melody to my humors, especially the sanguine one. Let me hold thy trembling hand. I've steady fingers and spare leeches. Forget the bagpipers. I can make better music on a ribet canned. I take requests. After we collapse, might I court thee while we share a physician? They say love is a fever. Perhaps we combine ailments and call it marriage. Success rate, negligible. Damp wool, fear sweat, and imminent cardiac arrest rarely set a. Romantic mood, 3-1. The plague's literary afterlife, from Goethe to Espialate TTR Puenka. Wolfgang von Goethe visited Strasbourg as a student. In his memoirs, he mentions the city's ancient frenzy of dancers that left cobbles haunted. He didn't turn it into a novel, but the image simmered later scholars spot echoes in the feverish festival scene of Faust. 19th century Gothic magazines adored grim curiosities. Penny dreadfuls like the Devil's Mazurka of Mainz spun lurid episodes where skeleton fiddlers force villagers into death waltzes until dawn. Early 20th century expressionists reimagined choreomania as social critique factory workers, jerking like marionettes on assembly lines, capitalism playing the piper. Modern splatterpunk authors crank gore, feet slough off mid-pirouette, tendons snap like lute strings, bagpipes howl sentiently. Amazon content filter sweats, yet across genres, one motif persists. Fear of lost control. Whether demons, chemistry, or peer pressure, the dancing plague offers writers a perfect allegory, our minds hummingbird fragile. Society a feedback loop, one wrong note, and the ballroom becomes a mortuary. 3-2. The Vitus Fitness Program. A totally responsible workout PLN because nothing says learned from history. Like monetizing it. Core principles, move voluntarily. If you can't stop, seek help, not sponsorships. Hydrate smarter than a 14th century peasant. Water, salts, not ditch brew. Respect your footwear. If your soles resemble parish candles, you went too far. Listen to music under 100 BPM 4. Cool downs, avoid medieval triple meter marathons. Stop at the first sign of involuntary jiggle. Ignore influencers who call it Beelzebub, signed waivers included, relic badges extra. 33. Mini biography, Sister Berta. The reluctant ergot harvester, she tilled convent fields near Aachen. Learned to spot the purple nubs after the 1374 disaster. Spent seasons tediously sorting grain, praying each coal prevented another mass boogie. Her letters reveal frustration. The brethren praise my vigilance, yet still bake with what looks suspicious to these eyes. She died of old age, never witnessed a relapse. Her work arguably saved her village. Historians rarely credit her. Parchment loves drama, not prevention. Here's her moment. 34. Comparative choreomania. Tarantism Vs. The Rhine, JG, Southern Italy. S. Spider fear epidemic emerges later but shares DNA. Victims seized by frantic dancing, cured so locals swore. Only by tarantella music. Doctors debated venom versus vapors. Where Rhine towns invoked saints, Apulian peasants blamed arachnids. Two cultures, same prescription, play faster. Possibly because rhythm synchronizes muscles, offers catharsis, and keeps spectators entertained. Long enough to feel helpful. If only someone had thought of prescribing silence and rest. But medieval medicine despised. Stillness it reeked of melancholic humors. 0.35. Dancing plague. Meme review: if the Middle Ages had social media, imagine woodcuts. With captions, picture 5 wilted dancers. Text: when the DJ says one more song, and it's your funeral dirge. Illustration: physician bleeds patient. Caption: POV: your barber thinks you're overheating, but you just need electrolytes. Animated tapestry GIF: Frau Trophia. Starting the groove, overlay me, after 1 sips of cold brew. Would it have helped? Possibly. Laughter is cathartic, and satire pricks superstition. But memes also spread behaviors. Viral content. Literal virality feedback loop unlocked. Conclusion. Medieval TikTok might have turned a regional crisis into continental meltdown by lunchtime. Be glad broadband arrived centuries later. 36. 3 unpublished theories from obscure monk CHRON, ICLO, RS Lunar. Collar alignment brother Pius calculated that planetary aspects in Cancer heated the moist humor in susceptible bodies. Triggering? Unstoppable capering. Recommended wearing lead-lined hats at night. Manuscript ignored because lead poisoning already claimed to test subjects. Wind. Possession Sister Hilltrod. Posited malicious breezes from swamp spirits entered ears of slack-jawed dreamers. Only violent motion expelled them, advised plugging. Ears with beeswax. Abby Bees displeased. Cabbage deficiency. Prior Clement tallied diets and found dancers ate fewer brassicas. Prescribed sauerkraut. Outbreak waned before trial concluded. But village adopted sauerkraut festival anyway, because excuse for beer? None gained traction. It each offers data. Medieval thinkers looked everywhere: sky, air, kitchen floor patterns. A science begins with ridiculous stabs in the dark. Sometimes you spear truth by accident. 3-8. Relic road trip to Sarvern. 2 carts. 1 saint, 0 break PAD, Assimigen dawn over the Alsatian plain. Roosters heckled the sunrise. Brewers rinse yesterday's tankards, and the magistrate's containment. Delegation creaks out of Strasbourg's Westgate destination. The shrine of St. Vitus perched above Little Sarvern. Cargo includes 37 twitchy townsfolk bound for holy intervention. A brass reliquary on loan contains, allegedly, 1 metacarpal of Vetus and a silk scrap kissed by his aunt. 3 overworked pipers hired to keep beats steady so the afflicted don't bail out mid-journey and improvise on the turnip fields. Day 1, the convoy crawls. Dancers wobble on straw mats like human metronomes. Villagers along the road watch, cross themselves, pitch unsolicited advice, feed them nettle broth, hang rosemary garlands. Try whacking them with blessed haddock. Thank you. Gertrude will note that. Night 1. Camp outside a hop farm. Campfire ambience. Lute strums. Random yelps when spasms kick. 1 piper mutinies. Claiming his wrists officially hate 6/8 time, council threatens him with latrine duty. Wrists miraculously recover. Day 2. Hills steepen. Wheels wobble. Dancer named Marta breaks free. Attempts cart top pirouette. Careens. Into blackberry bushes emerges dripping crimson juice locals. Think it's stigmatic blood. She calls it snack break and requests round 2. Arrival. Servern. Clergy greet the procession with incense thick enough to marinate a boar. Dancers shuffled into chapel made to touch the relic. Chant Kyrie between convulsions. Some slump peaceful exhaustion or miracle. You decide. Others perk up, insisting the relic's glow just taught them new footwork. Priests call that progress. And close the doors before empirical observation spoils the mood? Town ledger later notes, 17 returned, notably calmer. Eight. Remainder eloped with minstrels. Relic efficacy rating, mixed, but Pilgrim Taverns report record. Sales. So pilgrimage stays on the municipal menu. 39's municipal poster design. Keep calm and don't polka Strasbourg's printing presses. Fresh off Gutenberg's century-old blueprint, churn out broadsheets to curb recurrence. Picture heavy black letter font screaming from rough linen paper. Citizens, if thy feet itch for unbidden gyration, adhere to these ordinances, lest thou imperil thy neighbors and wear out the city drummer. Avoid rye loaves with black freckles and gossip, with blacker intentions. Should saint thou feel a jig rising, sit upon cold stone, recite the creed. And nibble raw cabbage. Street musicians must obtain a boogie license stamped by the Guild of Physicians Tempo Cap. 90. BPM public spaces close at Compline to dissuade moonlight mischief. Violators will scrub blood-slick cobbles sans stipend. Artists embellish posters with woodcut of skeleton. Fiddler chasing panicked baker. Children love it, bakehouse profits plummet. Unintended consequences, classic public health rollout. 40. TED Talk minus 500 years? I used to bagpipe for a dancing plague. Here's what I had taught me about trauma stage, Guildhall. Speaker, Conrad Derlot, former plague piper, turned self-styled wellness guru. He strides up, places bagpipe gently on a stool like a sleeping hedgehog. Conrad. Friends, colleagues, traumatized percussionists, I blew this instrument for 36 nights of human turmoil. Here's my 3-note philosophy. Note 1. Witness. When your melody keeps a delirious stranger upright, you become custodian of their pain. Do not look away, tune sharper. Note 2. Boundaries. After the 15th funeral, I learned to hand the pipe to an apprentice and breathe less the rhythm. Hijack my own limbs. Note 3. Transpose. I've retuned plague hymns into lullabies for orphans. Transforming a nightmare into comfort, this is alchemy greater than gold. He ends by coaxing a gentle air from his pipe slow, 70 BPM, Mixolydian, no one convulses. Applause pulses, half relief, half reverence. Conrad Bose sells pamphlets in the vestibule, from Korea to Catharsis, a Piper's Guide. 10 groschen a copy. Healing rarely comes cheap. For one, genealogy of Saint Vitus's worship. From Sicily to the Salsa FLO, our legend Colonel Vitus. Sicilian martyr. Ka. 303 CE survived boiling oil. Danced with angels during torture, prime patron material for spasms. Relics. Scatter. Lucania gives Corvée. Abbey Saxony gives Prague hello. Wenceslas gives pockets of the Rhineland. Each relocation births local feast with uncoordinated youths leaping for joy. Catholic branding at its peak 10th C. Saxon peasants pray to Vitus for crop fertility. Mild jigging considered pious fertilizer 12th C. Corvée monks export. Vitus oil vials olive blended with alleged bone dust. Retail therapy for nightmares and leg cramps. 14th C. Our timeline, cult collides with plague neurosis miracle. Marketing meets psychosocial tinderbox. Result, anyone who twitches gets stamped Vitus client. Faster than you can say exorcizo te. Post-Reformation. Protestants boot Saint Veneration. Choromania cases plummet in Calvinist zones, either theological detox or statistical blackout. Lutheran scribes less eager to file miracle fail reports. 20th. See, Czech choreographers reclaim Vita's dance as avant-garde ballet about neurological illness. Ironically, it premieres in Prague near the Saints' Cathedral relics. Reviewers call it sublime and mildly unsettling. Itis would approve. 42. Enter Dr. Sylvie. Neurovameter neuroscientist translates medieval. Demons into serotonin, SBIKS podcast crossover. We cue spectral Wi-Fi to patch in Dr. Nyova. Was never Lance to boil but can map your basal ganglia in neon. Host, that's us. Doc. What the heck happens when a crowd mirror dances into oblivion? Dr. N. Takes sleep deprivation. Caloric deficit. Group stress. Cortisol and adrenaline flood. Basal ganglia misfire. Motor loops repeat like scratched vinyl. Add belief scaffolding saints. Devil's and, the cognitive frame says, I'm compelled by something bigger. Let's commit. Host. So the bagpipe is optional? Dr. N. Music supplies rhythm cues. Mirror neurons sync to neighbors. Dopamine drip rewards each matched move, temporary relief from dread. That's self-reinforcing. Host ergot. Dr. N. Think of it as extra chili in already boiling stew. Not essential, but it'll blow the lid faster. Host. Best modern cure. Dr. N. Break the loop. Rest, fluids, reassurance, maybe benzodiazepines, not more tambourines. We thank her promised royalties when our Plague Fitness app launches. She laughs, disconnects, files restraining order joking. We think 0.43. Side quest. Inventing the anti-jig zone inspired by Dr. Nyova. Strasbourg tries again in 1520. Town square roped into quadrants. Green zone, silent prayer. Cool fountains, benches, amber zone. Soft lullaby music, herbal tea stalls. Red zone, Designated dance space monitored by constables ready with nets. Yes, nets closing. Parenthesis. Pilot weekend. 3 potential outbursts funneled into red zone. Musicians play adagio only. 2 dancers calm within minutes. 3rd simply leaves bored. Council. Claps selves on back. Net budget doubled for next year's festival season. History promptly forgets experiments. Success is dull. After all but one dusty minute book vindicates behavioral science 350 years, head of schedule, 44. Street-level lexicon, phrases the plague added to Alsatian slang to pull atrophia, spontaneously start an attention-grabbing project, exhaust oneself, abandon it, modern office culture vibes. Relic runer, someone who hops from fad to fad-seeking. Quick cures, aka wellness junkie. Shoemaker's midnight, the moment you realize your side hustle profits ride on another's misfortune. Mixed. Guilt, mixed coin. Bagpipe.com. Eerie silence after prolonged chaos. Modern German, Tanzru. Some survive today in dialect jokes scarcely anyone realizes. Trace back to sweaty cobblestones and a saintly pinky bone. Etymology, can 2.45. Mini scene. The day after diary of dancer Marga Uxel. Sept 1518, body leaden. Feet like smoked ham, but mind oddly light. Street is quiet, only pigeons scuttle across dried blood petals. I recall music fast. Faster faces blurred by moon and fear. My brother says I sang nonsense Latin. I know not these words. Now I feel hollow, as if sins wrung out through souls. Priest calls it miracle. I call it embarrassment. I vow. No bread save wheat, no music save psalms, no gaze toward men with pipes. Yet as I write, my toe taps the page corner. Small. But there pray the saint is gracious. I must rest. Her note ends, abruptly quill blobs resemble scattered dance footprints. Whether relapse or simple ink spill, archivists debate. Mystery pirouettes on. 47. On the road with Gerhard and his grousely mislabeled goose, contrary to local gossip. Gerhard's feathered sidekick is actually a grey-lag gander named Bruno. Gerhard rescued Bruno from a butcher's block during the 1518 commotion when the bird happened to hiss a rhythm suspiciously close to the plague's main beat. Naturally, townsfolk assumed the devil sent a percussion goose. Gerhard called it fate and legged it. Our odd couple sets out on a mini pilgrimage half-penance. Please don't arrest me for stealing municipal livestock. They trudge north along the Zorn River, Bruno waddling, occasionally honking. The opening to every Estampe in 6/8, episode highlights. Cold from Gerhard's fragmentary travel diary. Day 2, Bruno attempted to mate with a roadside scarecrow dressed in red. Color apparently triggers his dance memory. Took 3 buckets of well water to calm him. 1 for him, 2 for my blisters. Day 5, shared camp with Swabian pilgrims. They taught Bruno to bow on cue. He now demands applause before every honk. Swabian, hospitality rating. 5 pretzels. Day 8. Encountered itinerant flagellants beating drums as they whipped themselves. Bruno joined the rhythm, nearly recruited. I reminded him Gieslak, original sin citation, none. We escaped before anyone spotted my stolen clogs. We'll rejoin them later when destiny, or possibly poultry-elated foot rot, nudges them back toward Strasbourg drama. 4/8. Flagellants. Drums and dancing. A feedback loop of PIN flagellant processions bands. Of penitents whipping themselves to atone for God knows what hit peak popularity during plague decades. Their parades came with drummers whose beats regulated lash strokes. Cue an unexpected audio overlap. Dancers heard the penitential cadence. Brains misfiled it as a dance cue. And hey presto crossover event nobody ordered. Did flagellation curb? Or catalyst dancing outbreaks? Pros as containment, terrified onlookers into prayerful stillness. Public flagellation burned off communal stress calories. Possibly sparing villages at jig.cons, aka reality. Drums carry kilometers. Contagious rhythms beat cortisol like a dinner gong. Spectacle framed as divine purge. Dancers interpreted own. Spasms as mandated penance doubled down. Whip cracks triggered startle reflex. Several chronicles cite dancers joining the line spontaneously, whips still swinging. Result: mosh pit, martyrdom. Tally. Flagellants 0 chaos 1. The Council of Constance would eventually ban roaming self-whippers for causing as much confusion as comfort. Bureaucrats 1, drums 0.49. Tavern cook Helga's foot-friendly fair Helga, sous chef at Strasbourg's Boar and Barrel, capitalized on the crisis with a special menu, promising dishes that pacify restless limbs: cool brewed cabbage, stew served lukewarm to dampen humors, tastes like regret praised by monks. Barley oat mash cakes, gluten light, lower rye equals ergot-free selling point, costs double wheat bread. Hype beats budget, vinegar plum compote, tart, enough to pucker a bishop. Helga swears it pinches the blood back toward the heart and away from feet. Lavender hops tonic, early proto-beer with sedative herbs. Drinkers. Either nap or pen 400-line devotional poetry. Tavern reserves right to publish best verses. Helga's ledger shows profits spiking 40% in August 1518. Chronicler Sebastian Brandt later credits her stew with quelling a dozen jiggers. Modern dietitians chalk success up to hydration and electrolytes in salted broth. Helga just calls it soup.50. Kickstarting St. Vitus Orthotics if medieval Strasbourg had crowdfunding. Campaign title: Blessed Boots, Orthopedic Soles to Save. Thy soul's goal: 500 florins reward tiers, 1 florin receive. A parchment thank you and miniature foot charm. 5 florins pair of alderwood inserts carved with San Vitus sigil. 20 florins, bespoke cowhide clogs, plus notarized indulgence, shaving 10 days off purgatory. 100 florins, clergy sprinkle holy water on your personal dance floor. VIP pew at next miracle mass. Backer comments would alternate between sincere, my aunt cannot see sleeping, and snarky, will these clogs help me skip paying taxes? Production delays blame, shoemaker guild strike over work. Goose attack Bruno cameo, campaign funded in 11 days. Shipment slips because wagons keep being commandeered to haul fainted dancers. Medieval logistics in a nutshell, 5-1. Elizabethan dinner theater farce. The Merry Jiggers of Alsatia, London. C. 1590. A playwright named Miles Threadbare turns plague lore into slapstick. Plot synopsis preserved in a single quarto. Protagonist John Joggle suffers incurable toe tapping. Neighbors blame French wine. Local quack prescribes continuous bagpipe. Chaos ensues. Chorus of nuns tap dances while scolding him. Final act reveals a stowaway tarantula in the flour barrel. Audience roars. Curtain falls with group jig. Moral: better the devil you dance than the devil you wed. Critics lambaste historical accuracy. A door pratfalls. Shakespeare's All's Well company briefly steals the collapsing shoemaker gag until Threadbare sues, citing proprietary ankle humor. Lawsuit lost. Ankle humor declared public domain 5-2. Bagpipe care, aftercare of musicians. SEL of help appendix post-plague, city pipers meet to draft wellness guidelines. Rotate lead piper every hour. Prevent repetitive strain holy orders. Drink valerian honey tea to calm heart palpitations, induced by 120 BPM. Loops.check reads for scream fractures tiny splits, causing pitch that triggers. PTSD in ex-dancers. Decontaminate bag with wormwood smoke. Believed to chase out devils and questionable breath bacteria. Manuscript ends, if. When alone, thou hearest phantom stomps, seek clergy or quiet orchard, not the tavern, lest ghosts demand encores. Sound advice, 5-3. Pilgrim merch madness. CAPS. Candles and commemorative blister Balmasovern shrine courtyard blossoms into open-air mall. Vita Scaps. Felt hats with jingling bells. Ironically encourage more head bobbing. Candle of calm, beeswax tinted blue. Claim scent of cool river water. Reality, faint mildew, but tourists buy by the dozen. Blister be gone, salve, lard, comfrey, mystery herb. One monk reveals. Secret is Goose Griesgerhard's Bruno supplying feathers, not fat Bruno safe. Mini loot keyrings, purely decorative. Strings snap if plucked. Prophets fund new nave windows depicting, of course, dancing saints. Economists later argue the plague created a proto-consumer culture bubble centered on fear and folk remedies. Sociology 101 footnote secured .54. Rhythm as a social pathogen bullet paragraph. Science blitz entrainment. Humans sync movements subconsciously to external beat C rowing. It's marching closing parenthesis mirror neurons. Witnessing motion activates similar motor. Circuits mass mirroring can snowball. Emotional contagion. Stress plus synchronous activity equals group identity surge. Personal agency down dash regulates break loop disrupt beat silence. Deduce asynchronous stimuli or physically disperse crowd. Medieval. Councils miss step 2. They amplified stimulus. Conclusion. Good intentions. Terrible neuroscience. 5-6. Bruno storms the cathedral. A feathered interlude of holy Piaropu Artianesque hard. Dusty and footsore, finally trudges home to Strasbourg only to learn Bruno the gander. Has developed an alarming habit of marching straight up the cathedral steps every time the organist rehearses. Apparently the pipe's drone resonates with goose physiology like a mating call from Valhalla. Scene. Early dawn. Sunlight slants through stained glass. Sleepy sexton unlatches the heavy oak door. Gerhard hustles behind Bruno, whisper yelling. Bribes a barley. Bruno ignores him, honks a triumphant chord, and waddles down the nave, wings half spread. Pew-bound pensioners gasp. Nuns gasp. The organ hits a low F. Bruno answers in G-flat. A monk mistakes it for mystical antiphony and begins transcribing. Goose Quantas for the Abbey archives. The chaos escalates when a startled altar boy drops a censer, swinging embers like a fiery yo-yo. Plumes of incense billow. Dancers. PTSD flares in the gallery. One pilgrim begins tapping a downright dangerous pavan. Gerhard lunges, scoops Bruno football style, and sprints out, leaving a trail of feathers and existential questions. Later, Cathedral Council drafts a new edict. No livestock beyond the narthex during musical practice. Bruno is immortalized. In a marginal doodle, saintly goose with halo askew. 57. Body count arithmetic. Rhine, 1374. V.S. Strasbourg. 1518 medieval chroniclers loved dramatic numbers. Modern historians wrestle with their arithmetic like cats in a grain sack. Let's sift parchment scraps and see who really dropped from the dance. Rhine. 1374 ledger mashup. Aachen cannon notes many dozens felled. Mainz merchant writes hundreds collapsed betwixt the wine barrels. Anonymous monk jots a skull. Doodle next to more than could be buried before harvest. Cross-checking burial registers where they survive, plus coroner bills suggests 60200. Genuine fatalities across 3 months. Grim, but not apocalypse. Strasbourg, 1518 dossiers. City. Physician Paracelsus later repeats hearsay of 15 a day. Council expense scroll lists 41 burials labeled. Orbis saltatorius, dancing sickness. A satirical pamphlet inflates to 400 souls spun to death. Likely for sales clicks proto-clickbait. Composite scholarship today settles around 100 deaths over 6 manic weeks. Adjust for scribal flourish. You get rough parody. Both epidemics fatal, but not city emptying. Fear traveled faster than mortality. An important note when discussing social pathogens. Hype truly is the deadliest drum. 58. Letters between rival pipers. Lute-sized shots. 5 to found in the archives of the Musicians Guild. Wine invoice. Letter from Conrad Kleinzink, guild piper, to Albrecht Frosch, freelance piper. August 3rd, 1519. Honor diff, that word suits Seraphone, abuser. Your recent performance by the fish market was a treasonous assault on the Dorian. Mode, my ferret howled. Kindly cease flattening every leading tone like a drunken blacksmith, lest the populace mistake your tune for the plague's reprise and torch your sheepskin bag. With restrained dismay, Conrad Albrecht's reply, same day quick runner, dear. Squeaks knob, at least my Phrygian phrases summon coin, not cabbage. Rumor says your last set cured 3 dancers by sheer boredom. Shall I lend you lessons in feeling? Bring a purse fat enough to fit your ego. Musically yours, Albrecht. Postscript from Conrad. Delivered with a stale pretzel wrapped around the scroll. Keep the pretzel stale, flat and twisted, just like your cadences. Guild arbitrators eventually force a duet reconciliation concert. Audience reviews. Surprisingly therapeutic. Nobody died. 59. Renaissance intel ops. Spying under cover of DANCI diplomats. Of the early 1500s, realized an outbreak could distract city watchmen better than any fireworks. Venetian agent Lorenzo da Campo allegedly attempted to spark a mini-plague in Augsburg by hiring troubadours to play frantic reels near the grain market after rumors of moldy rye. His hope? Trade rivals would panic, taxes plunge, lenders default. The plan fizzled literally when unexpected rain soaked both bread and band. But the concept entered espionage lore. Operation Saltatio. Future plots considered. Smuggling drums into besieged towns to overstimulate garrisons, releasing leaflets, claiming local relics were charging dancers with divine voltage, hoping to trigger placebo choreography. These gambits rarely worked, city fathers now wise. Yet archivists have a field day uncovering diplomatic margins. Note, unstoppable jig, an economical siege alternative, requires musicians, plausible saint, expendable shoes. 60. How to host a non-fatal village feast. Instructional SERO, compiled by Prior Dietrich after the 1374 chaos. Rediscovered in a hayloft. Inspect the grain-black kernels. Burn them, the baker argues. Remind him who funds the roof repairs. Diversify. Music rotates slow ballads with brisk tunes. Do not exceed 3 fast pieces consecutively. Insert drinking songs as handy rest breaks. Dance floor etiquette. Mark chalk circles on the courtyard. When a circle fills, next dancers must wait. Overcrowding breeds hysteria and corns. Hydration posts barrels of watered ale at every corner. Each participant must drink on the quarter hour, as even Uncle Wolfram with the bladder of a goldfish curfew. Ring Vesper's bell thrice. Musicians stop, even mid-phrase. Anyone still spinning gets escorted to the barn and tucked into hay. Post-feast checks. Healer inspects feet. Barber inspects pulses. Priest inspects consciences. If all 3 say amen, feast counts as success. Prior, Dietrich's parish. Became famed for orderly revels. Pilgrims traveled just to watch peasants dance politely. Tourism, the soothing salve history forgets. 6-1. Mini-scene. Clockmaker's nightmare. November 1518, clockmaker Elsa Vogt sits in her workshop calibrating town hall bells. Each chime triggers phantom thumps in her memory echoes of the dancers. Shoes. Every mystic escapement sounds like a distant sham. She applies beeswax to muffle gears, scrawls a margin note. Silence is gold. Rhythm, lethal. Invents a muffled hammer cover for night howers, the primitive silent chime. City councilors adopt it, praising clock quiet for curbing nerves. Modern horologists consider Elsa an unsung pioneer of bedtime peace. Sometimes trauma seeds innovation quirky, but history nods approval. 6-2. Etymology sidebar. WHY Vitus became Veach in local. IRGO Alsatian dialect morphed. St. Vitus into Veach, shorthand for any wild shindig. Phrases recorded in 17th century tavern books. Throw a Veach. Host a ravishly loud party. Caught the Veach feeling restless. Pre-hangover jitters. Veach foot a blister from overdancing later, generic for any. Stubborn ailment closing, parenthesis, by 1800. Term faded, eclipsed by French cultural overlay. But grandparents still muttered, no Veach tonight, when kids drummed spoons at supper. Linguists treasure such fossil words ghost, steps echoing in speech. 6-3. Gerhard. Bruno, and the unexpected RSKO, injure returning from cathedral fiasco. Gerhard finds summons, answer before city council for public avian disturbance. Hearing room. Packed, half curious, half still traumatized from July, Council President clears throat. Your goose-induced irregular perambulations within sacred space. What say you? Gerhardt, exhausted but earnest, replies, if a single gander's honk reignites your fear, perhaps blame lingers not in birds but in hearts yet unhealed. Silence. An elderly nun nods. Council grants leniency? Gerhard must lead weekly goose-assisted exposure therapy. In cathedral courtyard supervised musical desensitization, Bruno becomes municipal therapy animal wearing a tiny bell around, his neck lower than the trigger pitch. Citizens gradually learn to laugh when Bruno honks. Laughter. The foot-friendly cure? Prior Dietrich forgot. 6-6. The Secret. Lullaby of Anselmet, the Swineherds, DOGHTR, collected 1892 by Alsatian folklorist H. Reiber, allegedly traced back to 16th century oral tradition. Swing not, sweet feet. In the moon's bright snare, lay down thy sorrow, let dreams keep thee there. For when the drum calls, the devil takes pair, and spins them to dust in the dark. For sleepy verses, each ending with lie still, little limb, linguists note the lullaby's unusual stress where a jig rhythm would normally lift. Parental strategy, anti-entrainment, trocking the child against triple meter so. Subconscious says no thanks to nighttime jitter. Earliest cognitive behavioral therapy. Possibly. Parents 1. Plague 0.67. Gregorian grain exorcism. Chanting at the MOLD Benedictine Abbot Hugo. Convinced ergot was literally the devil's rye. Orders chanting monks into the granary. Introit. Vexilla registrich Dorian drones. It's thought to vibrate evil spores. Processional, holy water sprinkler humor dampening splashes. Alternating verses with pitch dips to cool the grain. Result. Humidity rises, all that warm breath, sacks, sweat, mold spreads faster. Abbey loses half its breadstock. Chronicle footnote. Chant deferred to chapel henceforth. Wheat purchased from Basel. Lesson science greater than psalmody for fungus. Management. 68 WHY. The Rhine quieted, but southern Italy kept TARNTL's Lyongy climate shift. Colder north, after an 1550 lowered ergot risk. South still perfect for spiders plus sweaty field hands. Reformation, Calvinists purge saints. Processions, ecstatic pitfalls. Southern Catholicism retains mystical toolkit room for dance catharsis, cultural reframing. Rhine cities rebranded mass dance as shameful hysteria. Apulia folded Tarantism into yearly folk ritual bite season, turning illness into festival, thus self-limiting and socially accepted. Key takeaway. How a society interprets twitchy legs decides whether it calls a doctor, a priest, or an ACC or DIND. 6-9. Radio play. Ergot fungus vs. TikTok algorithm moderated by St. Vitus. Q. Crackling parchment radiostatic. Host St. Vitus. Welcome. Mortals to Korea chat. Guest 1. Cleviceps purporeo. Call him Ergot. Ergot slimy baritone. Happy to seep into your feed. TikTok algorithm. Shimmering voice of 1,000 trends. Hashtag blessed hashtag for you. Double quotes. Vitus. Debate topic who infects dance craving better. Ergot. I lace your rye. Hijack serotonin. You hallucinate demons classic. Algorithm. Cute. I lace your dopamine. Hijack boredom. You film yourself flossing in traffic viral. Ergot. Can you make feet rot off? Algorithm. No. But I can make 2 billion humans ignore traffic lights. Vitus. Ringing bell. Draw. Humanity. Please mute both of them and go outside. Slowly. Fade with goose honk that morphs into a notification ping. Closing parenthesis 70. Anatomy of a shoe. Failure field report by Master Jacob Cordwainer observation. Turn shoe seam bursts first at lateral instep, where dancers pivot. Countermeasure. Double whip stitch with boar bristle. Observation. Calf leather soles soften after 4 hours on hot granite. Countermeasure. Dip sole in resin suit. Mix smells foul. Lasts for dances. Observation. Adding iron plates extends life but summons blisters the size of monk tonsures. Pray for miracle. Invest in coffin board futures. glorious glimpse of product development in crisis. Nike R&D could never 7-1. Round-robin rumor game how the story morphed across. UROP Strasbourg original. Woman danced till her feet bled, more joined. Basel version, a week later. Whole town possessed. They sliced souls off and still danced. Venice market gossip. Rhine folk dance without heads. Only bagpipes keep them attached. Lisbon sailor's tavern, up north, bread sings, and you must follow or die. By the time it hit a Japanese Jesuit in 1600, in distant lands, Christians hop for days to appease sky demons. Global telephone, same as ever, 7-2. The Rhythm Breakers. 5 tiny heroes we never see our Dillamiller Odal hate, who closed her mill 3 rainy weeks to dry rye. Before grinding microprevention hero, barber surgeon autofield medic handbook author, who introduced mandatory water breaks reduced. Fatal collapses by 15%. Clockmaker Elsa, silent chime giving citizens. Uninterrupted hours of night calm. Goose Bruno instinctively honking offbeat. Desensitizing townsfolk unselmet. Lullaby whispered for generations, teaching kids to mistrust suspicious tempos. Monuments. 0. Plaques. None. Foot-friendly cobbles, remember, though every step is gratitude. 7-4. The Great Physician's Duel. Bleeder vs. SNU, FFR. Early October 1518. Strasbourg's Council. A weary of coffins and complaint letters, pits 2 star healers against each other. In a public health face-off, contender a Dr. Lorenz the Leech Skell, proud disciple of Galen, carries a vainly lancet like a dueling rapier. Motto, if in doubt, let it out. Contender B Magister Sabina Rosenkrantz, university-trained aromatherapist who swears by lavender, rosemary, and strategic naps. Motto, if you can smell, you can heal. Rules of engagement, each physician receives 10 afflicted dancers. Equal mix of genders and blisters. Treatments proceed for 48 hours. Winner determined by how many patients remain alive and non-dancing at dawn of day 3. Round. Lend. Immediate intervention Skell lines his cohort against the Guildhall wall, opens elbow veins and collects a bucket of bright red overheated. Humor. Patients wobble. Some faint crowd mutters approval. Rosenkrantz ushers her tent into a curtained booth filled with cool mist from rosewater fountains. She massages ankles with lavender balm, forces everyone to sip chamomile cider, then dims lanterns to lullaby hush. Spectators yawn, drama quotient. Low. Round 2. Night watch Skells. Area sounds like a pig-sticking festival. Moans. Dripping urgent prayers. One patient tries to bolt. Skell orders binding straps. From Rosenkrantz's booth, silence, occasional snore, faint scent of time. Night watchman pokes his head in, nearly falls asleep standing. Round 3 dawn, verdict sun climbs. Skell's 10-6 survive but still twitch to collapse from blood loss. To deceased buried with colorful commentary, he danced, he bled, he died. Rosenkrantz sighed. 8 sleeping peacefully. 1 mild foot spasm, 1 slipped. Out during the night later, found in stable nibbling hay but otherwise calm, taught council tallies. Rosenkrantz wins by landslide. She receives a purse of silver, an official decree permitting herbs and rest clinics. Skell storms off, muttering that Europe will regret abandoning steel and leech. Future historians nod at this pivot toward gentler medicine. 75. The miracle. Sock relic SCAM, with relic fever still peaking. An enterprising friar named Brother Casper unveils the sock of Saint Lar. Vitus allegedly the hosiery worn during the saint's trial by boiling oil. Claim, kiss the knit, your feet resist the devil's tempo. Marketing tactics, parades where Casper brandishes a wool sock in crystal box while choir chants pox. Pamphlets boasting testimonials. My cousin's ankles. Cease their wicked fandango. Juliana, cobbler's wife. Pricing tears. Single tote, 1 pfennig. Full sock embrace, 1 groat. Pred clipping 5 groats. Limited supply, mysteriously unlimited. The con unravels when a sharp-eyed nun notes the sock's heel patch matches cloth from a loom invented only last decade. Casper flees under moonlight, leaving thousands poorer but oddly comforted. The placebo effect wields sturdy footing. 7-6. Choreomania through the centuries of prose, sprant Thuringia. 1237. Scores of children march dance toward Erfurt until exhaustion. Chronicler blames Herodias's curse. Aachen in Rhine Valley, 1374. Our original headline, Acktown, Two-Town Contagion. Pipers on payroll, cobbler boom, Apulia, 1428 to 1480s. Tarantism era spider fear meets tambourine therapy. Every summer a fresh batch of biters in frantic pizzica. Rhythms, Metz, 1480. Brief but intense. Monks report novices vaulting over choir stalls. Abbot orders 3-day silence. Episodes cease. Strasbourg, 1518. Frau Trophia sparks the 6-week mega shuffle we've dissected. Midsummer Swedish parish, 1592. Harvest dancers whirl until the pastor bans all fiddle tunes during Lent and Advent.
Outbreak fizzles.
Madagascar imitation. 1840s. Missionaries record local trance dances, eerily similar proof the blueprint of frenzy never fully retires. Only our e-locus. By 1700, the northern European flare-ups fade. Partly due to cooler climate, partly Enlightenment skepticism demons, show me data, and partly improved milling hygiene. South Italy keeps Tarantism afloat as folkloric performance until the 20th century, when the pop charts at last provide safer outlets for angst.77. Conrad and Albrecht reunited. The birth of Mrs. Saltatoris after years of sniping. Two rival pipers get drafted by Cathedral Kapellmeister to compose a mass commemorating the end of the plague. Conditions must blend solemn liturgy with local folk motifs, heavenly but with toe taps. Collaboration diary snippets, Conrad. Kyrie motif to be in Mixolydian, 80 BPM safe. Albrecht, add drone bagpipe under Sanctus, evokes Rhineland fields. Congregation will sway gently, but not too gently.
Oh.
Both agree to insert sudden rest silent beats every 16 bars to remind worshippers that pauses save. Lives. Mrs. Saltatoris premieres Easter, 1521. Choir glides. Bagpipes, drone subdued, mid-movement hushes, punctuate like guardian angels shushing restless legs. A congregation emerges calm, inspired, blister-free. Reviewed by town scribe, a miracle of measured mirth. 5 candlesticks out of 5. Conrad and Albrecht retire their feud. Open a joint music school teaching responsible rhythm. Alumni later seed Baroque dance suites disinfected of lethal tempo surabonged, Alaman geeg jeeg name kept. Danger removed .78. Bonus scene, ergotinoma, the fungi's last mono, ology, it in a forgotten barn. A lone ergot sclerosium sighs as a miller flings it onto the compost heap. Once, they worshipped my visions. Now, they sift me out like chaff. I painted their nights with lacy devils, made their knees elastic. But progress tastes bland. Steel mills, microscopes, sanitized bread. Very well, I shall bide inside damp backwater silos, waiting for the inattentive. Even in ages of science, a little rot fits through the cracks. Spores drift on the dusk. Breezimus, yet anticlimactic. The town's new grain inspector sneezes, then tightens bin lids. Modernity 1, fungus 0, for now .79. Toe-tapping takeaways a table-free closer, promised fear plus rhythm equals wildfire. Break either and flames sputter. Saints, socks, and songs all sell hope. Quality varies. Placebo common. Goose therapy. Lavender naps and silent clock hammers did more good than lancets and drums. Rival musicians can turn catastrophe into art when ego bends toward harmony. Ergot lurks. Algorithms lure both remind us to curate what we consume. Bread or content. Closing parenthesis, 8-1. The invention of anti-dance insurance, or how Ulrich von Underwriter turned fear into FLORIN center. Ulrich von Underwriter, a shrewd Swabian. Notary who's watched cobblers boom, bakers bust, and bagpipers burn out. While counting unpaid funeral bills, inspiration strikes. Why not sell policies against spontaneous, jig-related ruin? He drafts parchments with flowing clauses. If thou thy spouse, or recognized livestock should commence involuntary hopping exceeding 6 hours. This policy covers lost wages, shredded footwear, and one modest burial. Exclusions. Deliberate. Revelry. Wedding dances lasting less than 3 paternosters. Is it any jig triggered by drinks stronger than small beer? Premiums scale by occupation. Tavern drudges pay pennies. Musicians and millers fork over silver. Council. Eyeing revenue. Grants Ulrich license provided. He funnels 10% to an emergency water barrel fund. First claimant. Cooper's apprentice collapses after 13 hours of Bacali. Shuffle. Ulrich pays widow and fresh souls, and a goose not Bruno. Word spreads. Policies sell faster than lard pies. Inevitable backlash. One theologian labels the scheme selling indulgences to the devil's drummer. Ulrich retorts that even saints need actuaries. Decades later, his ledgers informed the earliest life insurance prototypes in Augsburg. When modern actuaries toast their patron, they should clink to Ulrich's grandfather of unruly kinetics coverage. 8-2. The Parisian. Fashionista who launched plague-proof slippers fast forward, smidged to 1623. Paris hums with lace and lute solos. Madame Rosaline de l'Archambault, cobbler couturière, to bored nobility. Here's salon gossip about the old Alsatian horrors. Light bulb momentactually, a dripping tallow candle over fabric swatches she unveils. Less pantoufles, pacificatrice's dainty velvet slippers, lined with hemp rope and steel beads that rattle ever so slightly offbeat. Roseline's sales pitch. The devil cannot seize a rhythm that refuses to stay in time. Wear these and you will never be swept into vulgar sink. Courtiers adore the marbled silk, ignore the science, and empty purses. To cement the craze, Rosaline hosts a masked ball where minstrels must vary tempo every 8 measures. Guests attempt to waltz, stumble, giggle, and praise the slippers for rescuing ankles from sinful cadence. Rosaline exports pairs too. Vienna, Venice, even Edinburgh where Calvinists scowled but secretly slipped them on before Cayley's. Within a decade, the fad fades, steel beads rust, hemp reeks in rain. Yet one relic survives in the Musée des Arts Decoratifs, a scuffed lilac slipper with a tag, forgiveness stitched into every misstep.
83.
A penitential drinking song. That accidentally tops the CHRTS back in Strasbourg. 1530s Lent. Brewer monk brother Matthias, tasked to curb tavern rowdiness, pens a dirge called Tread Soft. O sinner, slow 3/1 meter, morose lyrics about dusty bones and sore heels. He teaches it to patrons, expecting gloom to douse their spirits. But a wandering lutenist speeds it up, slurs the Latin, and adds a bawdy refrain. If thy feet be damned, let the barrel be bland, but if beer be bold, let the devil take hold. Steins slam, bodies sway in perfectly harmless two-step. The tune crosses borders faster than merchant caravans. Miners in the Hearts chant it while hauling ore. Basque sailors bellow verses against Atlantic gales. A Venetian printer issues the first broadside sheet music, claiming guaranteed to banish melancholy or summon dance. Results vary. Brother Matthias, mortified, confesses to the bishop, who shrugs. At least they're singing theology. Son? By mid-century, the melody morphs into a jaunty Advent carol, then a cradle lullaby. Moral, you can brew caution, but fermentation may fizz into joy. 8-4. Bruno the goose takes holy orders, sort of our beloved gander. Now middle-aged, serves as abbey metronome emeritus. Twice daily, he's led to the cloister garden where novices practice plainchant. Legend says, if a novice drifts off pitch, Bruno tilts his head. Tempo speeds. He honks, single corrective blast. The abbot records productivity gains, fewer dragging hymns. Sharper consonants, 0 accidental tarantellas. Visitors flock to watch the feathered choirmaster. Pilgrim badges now depict goose wings framing a sea clef. Bruno munches lettuce, blissfully unaware of his liturgical acclaim. One winter eve, elder monks notice him limping old dance injuries. Catching up, they cobble tiny felt booties, lavender-scented. When Bruno waddles the cloister, boot tassels sway out, tubs sink perfect, preventive. He retires with full honors, an illuminated entry in the abbey necrology prepared in advance. Bruno, Avis, Vigilantissimus, guardian of rhythm, foe of frenzy. 85. Epilogue of this leg. Lessons stitched into souls we've watched insurers monetize jitters. Couturiers glamorize caution, monks accidentally compose bangers, and a goose mentor choristers. Threads unite, fear incubates inventions. Gold-lined, sometimes mold-tinged. Rhythm's tyranny fades when communities tweak tempo. Poke fun, or dress it in lilac velvet. Every epidemic begets two tales, calamity and creativity. We're still weaving both 8-7. The mill that could sniff mold. Dirk van Wins, quixotic CIO, and P8 Wind. Dutch millwright, who lost two cousins to a minor jig outbreak near Greta, convinced the culprit was invisible grain rot. He resolves to build a rook mullen, a scent-catching windmill. He outfits the cap with goose quill funnels that channel breeze through a stack of linen, filters soaked in vinegar. A bell rings if the cloth whiffs of bitterness. Dirk calls it Nose of the North, grand unveiling. Villagers gather, breeze gusts, bell clangs furiously. Dirk triumphantly orders every suspected sack burnt.
Ali.
To discover the bell also reacts to the nearby herring smokehouse. 50 sacks of perfectly good rye go up in flames. Taverns run dry. Fishermen apologize through tears of laughter. Dirk tweaks design, adds rosemary dampers, calibrates bell threshold. Second trial. Bell. Silent, bread sweet, town relieved. He patents concept with the state's general patent, denied impractical. Smells fishy. Yet copycat mills pop up from Zeeland to Lübeck. No, Dirk retires smiling. Pockets thin, but conscience lighter than airborne spores. 8-8. Rome's secret dossier. Desaltation Angelorum. Whispers swirl through Vatican corridors. If saints once danced, could angels? Curial theologians convene under Cardinal Belladonna, unrelated to the plant, though equally intoxicating. They draft a discreet white paper on the possibility of celestial jigging. Key findings leaked by an enterprising scribe: angels, being pure spirit, cannot fatigue. Therefore, their gyrations pose no doctrinal hazard. Cherubs, depicted on Baroque. Ceilings often appear mid-pier, wet iconographic precedent, secured. However, encouraging mortal imitation courts hubris and blister. Recommendation: permit depictions. But ban public speculation. Pope-size inks, noted in the margin, files it behind treatises on bell-ringing etiquette. Decades later, Bernini sculpts St. Teresa in ecstasy. Critics murmur, she's one allegorical foot tap from trouble. The dossier remains sealed until a 20th century archivist giggles it into academic lore. 89. A courtship in counterpoint. Love letters. Measured in BPMT survivors of the 1518 frenzy, Lena and Casper find romance in shared caution. Their correspondence survives on brittle parchment flecked with sweat rings shaped like tiny hearts. Excerpted here. Dearest Lena, my pulse today steadies at a merciful 65 beats, thinking of the raises it to 70, but no more. You are excitement within safe tempo. A reply. Casper, I tapped my foot twice to the memory of your smile, then I stopped, remembering moderation. Meet me after Vespers. We shall stroll in duple meter beside the river. Their eventual vows include a mutual pledge: never let household music exceed 90 BPM, save on feasts when they agree to switch songs every fourth measure. They live to venerable ages, testament that love is best served adagio.90. The Goose. Guild of Lorraine petitions for sainthood. Bureaucratic ballet in 18 stamped COPI is inspired by Bruno's fame. A fraternity of regional goosekeepers drafts a petition to Rome. Sanctus Brunus, protector of tempo. They argue, miraculous honks kept choristers in holy beat. Feathers symbolize lightness of soul, yet grounded feet. Goose quills long serve to pen sacred music, clearly divine synergy. Obstacles arise, canon lawyers demand evidence of postmortem. Miracles. Bruno, inconveniently alive, cannot oblige. A Spanish cardinal scoffs, citing bad childhood memories of aggressive ganders. The College of Heralds debates iconography. Halo fits, but should the goose wield a tuning fork? After months of parchment ping-pong, the petition stalls. Goose Guild pivots, rebrands gold to honorary beatified beast lower bar. Archbishop of Nancy finally issues a regional decree. Bruno recognized as Beata's Anx Instrumentum Dei. Pilgrims carve tiny winged metronomes into choir stalls. Bruno nibbling dandelions remains blissfully indifferent. 9-1. Postlude poem. Ode to the dustless cobblestone sing. Quiet street of the day the drum was calmed. When linen shoes outlasted dread and laughter, laced each stepping stone instead. Sing, wary heart, of measured breath, of geese that honk the tempo true, of lovers counting pulses just for two. Let mold drift far on winter wind. Let angels dance beyond our sight. We toast to rhythm, yes, but trimmed with light. Citizens recite this ode during annual stillness vigil, a twilight hour where all instruments pause and even tavern shutters stay hushed save. One ceremonial goose, cry echoing like a comic blessing. 9-2. Snuffing the last sparks, how memory became a focal, all awry by mid-17th century. Official Chronicles note, no New Northern. Choreomania. What remains is story. Lullabies, slipper legends, insurance clauses. A cautious instinct when bagpipes groan too briskly. Grandmothers wagged fingers at rambunctious children. Mind your humors, or St. Vitus will borrow your boots. Kids giggle. Slow their skipping, then dash off anyway. Risk breeds youth, yet the warning etches a groove. Culture inoculating itself with narrative antibodies.